and welcome back to our podcast, On the Ground Parenting, bringing you in from your home to ours. Our house is that little blue house in the logo, Muskoka Family Focus. I'm Sandy Inkster, and I'm pleased to be with you again, and I'm joined by
Sam Ennis-Wallace
and Kelly Armstrong.
And we started talking about summertime. Those of you who have children who are in school, you may have children at home. You may have another schedule happening right now. They might be at camps or visiting grandparents. There's a whole lot of difference happening right now. And we have some ideas about how you can make that time together maybe more fun, maybe more adventurous, and definitely appealing for everyone. So we were talking about getting outside, the outdoors. And before we dive into, is there scientific evidence about why this is so great? Sam, what have you noticed in your family? What makes getting outdoors different or beneficial for your family?
I think that when people are getting some more fresh air and sunshine, sleep patterns are better in my house, which has been an ongoing issue. We've talked a little bit before about the neurodivergence that happens here. So sleep is definitely something that is an issue here. And the more vitamin D people are soaking in and the more fresh air they're inhaling, the better we're sleeping at night.
Thanks a lot. Kelly, what's happening in your home?
Well, sleep's not generally been our issue. I think partially because my kids are readers and they just go to sleep whenever they're done reading. So that doesn't fill our days as much as it could. What I've really noticed is moods. There's a lot of personalities. There's lots of moods. And so when we have enough outdoor time, there's an ease, there's a tolerance, there's a patience, there's a goodwill that is not always present when we have been in a small space, cooped indoors in each other's spaces for too long of a time.
Yeah, I think I've noticed some of the same outcomes as both of you. When my kids were young, it was almost like it became their domain more, like the outdoors. It wasn't so much that, we were inside and there were ways of being, like maybe rules of, can't kick the soccer ball in the house type of thing. So outside, it was a lot different. And just by being outside, I know that they did sleep differently. They slept better. So all that aside, what about any sort of research that you've heard, that you've read? Do you have a podcast that you follow about the importance of kids getting outdoors, or have you read something? Kelly, what comes to mind for you?
Well, I was just thinking about the Toronto Star article that was out, and I think the piece, it cited lots of those things about being outdoors, of lowering blood pressure and reducing anxiety and making kids just feel better in general. What really struck me, though, is their recommendation was something as little as 2 hours a week. Like, it was such a minimal recommendation, which makes me wonder and think about, are there kids that aren't getting those 2 hours a week?
Yeah, could be.
Definitely are. There definitely are, because in my house, in my very, very neurodivergent house, getting my youngest child outside, if it's slightly too hot, if there are a few too many bugs, if it might have been raining more than he would like, any little difference makes it very challenging to get him outside. So I think that, the research is certainly sound that we need at least that 2 hours outside, but there are certainly kids out there who aren't getting that time. It's a conscious effort here to get him to peek his little head out the door. So
the blood pressure, I have to say, when you mentioned that, Kelly, I thought, are we talking about kids' blood pressure or parents, or nah, it's both. It's everyone, right? It affects all of us. So, okay, so there's lots of evidence out there. You can dive into that and find that research. But let's talk about how we're going to get them outside. And when Kelly and Sam and I were talking earlier, we thought, realistically, what we're talking about is getting outdoors, and to get over that hurdle or that wondering of what are we going to do? What should we do? We came up with this idea that whatever you do inside, take it outdoors, take it outside. So, what were some of the things that we explored, Kelly?
Well, we talked a little bit about art. I think that's one of my favorites. A simple set of watercolors, not expensive, some watercolor paper. And it's funny how kids will spend time like painting those leaves or painting this when you're just away from the house. And part of our setup sometimes is I don't ask, do you want to go outside and paint watercolors? We sort of start with, do you want to go on a little adventure? And a little adventure can be, 200 meters into the backyard. Oh, look, I happen to have some watercolors in my bag. Who wants to see if they can paint a leaf? Or what can you paint and look at? And I'm always amazed at how long they will kind of sink into that space. And the invitation is always to like look and observe and pay attention, and whatever they create, they create. On one particular occasion that my niece still talks about, they had a really lovely time painting on paper, and then they moved on to painting on their bodies. So they painted watercolor up their arms, on their legs, on their feet, made footprints on the rocks. It was one of those days where the folks I were with were willing to let things unfold. And we're pretty flexible. So we still think about that day and laugh about it. And now that's the question. Can I paint on my bodies? And sometimes I say no.
Yeah, we had those days here too. And it was a big cardboard refrigerator box that was opened up, and my grandsons ended up being, bare naked with paint all over them. So that was our fun adventure. And I was thinking too about how it doesn't always have to be paint. So with my kids, it would just be maybe spray bottles with water when they're really young, and you just noticing the change from dry, not wet, to being wet. And then you know what? It's warm, it dries, and they can start all over again. So it was like a continuous activity that was a ton of fun.
And I think it's also important to remember that it's ageless, really. So we were in the car today driving my oldest son, who's 21, and he was talking about pottery and clay and things you could do with that. And one of the things that he was talking about was the imprint that a different leaf would make on the clay. So I think it's important to remember when you're going outside to do these activities, it doesn't have to be just with littles. If you have bigger people in your life, invite the adults in your household to go outside and go on a little adventure with you as well. So, and you can find clay in your environment too. If you're at the beach, there might be clay if you dig down there. So I think there's just some great ways to draw in that artistic ability in lots of different ways.
I love that. And you're reminding me of, I went on a hike on the East Coast, and thinking about natural materials that you can find anywhere. We found a heart that was all made out of red maple leaves that had turned with the color, and it was a rainy day. So the deck that they were sitting on was rainy. The leaves were rainy, which just made them super bright and shiny. And it's made me think about how even plain old materials, you don't even necessarily have to take them home. Kids can arrange them in an art project, or when we're at Lake Superior Provincial Park, you'll often see people arrange the rocks. They might make a word in it, they might make a design with it, and then folks just take a photo. So everything stays there, nothing comes home, but you have these little art vignettes.
And even, diving into things like the age of everyone. And so then it's sort of like if someone is 4 years old, for example, you'd find 4 leaves, or someone is 6 years old, they would find 6 stones. And so kind of a variation of a scavenger hunt that can happen outside. And sometimes when we're talking about this, it might be that, you, the listener, you're thinking, oh, yeah, right, Sandy, right, Kelly. Okay, Sam, how about you come and organize it for me and my kids? Some people just aren't that spontaneous or in the moment thinking about it. So we'd also talked about this too, about being intentional and planning. So, Sam, how have you planned when something's coming up for you and your kids?
I think that thinking ahead to what might pique people's interest, one of the main things is I try to have a variety of ideas in my back pocket to pull out if the opportunity presents itself. So, it's pretty easy you can also paint with water and a stick, or you can draw in the sand and create rivers or things like that. So just having some ideas of A, what people in my life might like to do, and B, how we can make that happen with very few supplies on hand. So just that little bit of awareness and just thinking it through a little.
Yeah. Thinking it through, I think, is great prep work for us parents, and it helps us in the moment to not panic or, to lose it because kids need something to do. And if I pull that something out of my back pocket, then that usually changes or helps the mood to shift.
Absolutely. And I just think about, like, I just have this vision when I'm thinking about this of being stuck in a motel outside of Corner Brook, Newfoundland. The transmission went in the van. It was the rainiest week on the face of the rainiest of weeks. And all I can think was me playing under the little covered area with my kids because we were done being wet at that point. And I was bringing up all of the old games I used to play when I was a kid. So, red light, green light. What time is it, Mr. Wolf? Like, I'm sure people thought we were off our rocker cuckoo banana, but it was a wonderful little brief respite in a very stressful situation. So just call on those things that were fun for you when you were a child as well.
Yeah. How about you, Callie? What does your planning or your intentional practice look like being prepared?
So I'm both good at being prepared, and I really don't like to work really hard at being prepared. So I try to collect things in bags like a little squirrel. So I have my watercolors and some paper in a bag that I might tuck in my backpack, and sometimes I use it and sometimes I don't. Sometimes, depending on the age of the kids, I have a fire lighting kit that has both matches, and I have a set of family members that like to just learn how to light matches. So that might be something we do for a half an hour with lots of water, and we talk about safety, but they're so intent on getting it right and then holding it for just that second in order to be able to light a fire. I have almost like little mini kits that I leave in an old backpack that hangs by my door, that when I'm going outside with kids, I can pick a few of those. I don't let the kids see it. And not that it's activity based, I also have like treats in that bag. For my canoe trip days, I used to always pack one giant chocolate bar that nobody else knew about. And on a day like Sam was having, where it was raining and it's miserable and you're soaked to the bone and you wish you had never come outside, when somebody brings out chocolate, the day is just a little bit sunnier.
Yeah. I remember I was a cub leader and we were at a cubbery and it was a big thunderstorm and so that's when I brought out the crackers that they would chew and then try and whistle, mouthful of dry crackers and also the bubble gum blowing time. These little things that you pack. You don't know if you're going to use it or if you're going to need it for anything, but it's there just in case. Sometimes that idea comes from something that has cropped up in my mind or something that I heard from someone else, or maybe I saw it online or, somebody's social media site that it was exciting and intriguing for me. So I wanted to make sure that I had it available. As a grandma now, I am with my grandson every week for a day, and I have 2 bags of stuff that come with me, and I change out the stuff, but there's some stuff that's regular, and so then he sometimes dives into the bag and discovers what's interesting to him, or maybe I have a plan of something. And I think you mentioned the word invitation too earlier, Kelly, and I think that's key as well. How the invitation is to someone else. It's not about telling them to do it. It's not making them do it. It's, maybe you're just going to put out the items and not say too much about it. And then they'll discover it. Or maybe they will have their own kit, like you mentioned in the past, Kelly, that they get to unwrap themselves and or open, or they pack it themselves, and they get to dive into it whenever they want. So more autonomy with that as well, too. So we talk about being prepared and being intentional and planning what we're going to do and having those things tucked away. And then there's also that part too is about being realistic. And so as a parent, it's almost like a dance, knowing when we're going to push them a little, knowing when we're going to back off a little bit. When has that happened for you?
I mean, I think that is the dance of parenting, is where's their learning edge? Where do we help them do stuff? I think as we get to know our own kids, it'll be different for different kids. And when you have more than one, as many of us do, or there's more, you bring your nieces or nephews, so there's more personalities. It's always a little bit about balancing. I've nephews right now who love catching frogs and other folks that aren't so keen on frogs. And so it's this piece of maybe we take turns. This person gets to pick what we're going to go do for the next half an hour, the next 15 minutes, our morning. So sometimes there's choices around that. So one kid's in their element and the other kid is more being pulled in a direction that they might not have chosen. And then another time, a different kid picks those things. There's a balance between to pushing them to be a little bit uncomfortable. And I think part of raising kids is it's okay for them to be uncomfortable, but also knowing when that uncomfortable is too much, when they're overwhelmed, when it's a lot. One of my kids' favorite activities with with my nieces and nephews and their cousins on our camping trip is to practice dumping the canoe. And I'm happy with that because it means if it dumps by accident, they'll know what to do. 3 of them are really keen. 2 of them are right on their edge. And so we leave that activity totally up to the smaller one's choice. Do you want to participate? Do you want us to go slow? Do you want us to just watch? Because forcing them to dump would be too much, I think, at this point.
And I think that's important to follow up on that. For me as a parent, recognizing what I may want that I might be forcing out of someone else that isn't within their comfort zone. So I really need to be attentive to the cues that are arising from my children, the other children around me, even the other adults. This is social awareness really in action, is that we're noticing the cues of their comfort level. And even though as a parent I may really, really, really want them to, gain comfort at, dumping a canoe, in this moment, it might not be wisest for us to push it.
I think that's such a keen observation about all relationships, absolutely. And really, when you think about it, our children are counting on us to support them and help them learn and grow. So we have to know where that edge is, definitely. And it brings to mind this is just another. It actually the story popped up in my social media feed as a memory, um, and it was of doing a ropes course at Santa's Village. So my youngest one year, we waited in line. He waited in line the whole time and he talked to the people and then we left. And the next year, we waited in line the whole time. He let them put the harness on him. He walked up the stairs and then he bailed and he had to walk right back down the stairs. But then the third time he went to do it, he actually did the whole thing. And it was just this big, exciting adventure. Like it was such a huge celebration for us for so many reasons because of his neurodivergence, having somebody touch him, wearing the uncomfortable harness, being up in the air, the different feeling of all the platforms. Like it just was this huge, huge win. But it was only because I didn't push him too hard the first or second time. I let him go to what his limit was and then back away when he needed to so that he could regroup and try again another time. So it really is, it's so important to be aware of people's cues and what their limits are.
I think that's a great way for us to sum up this chat right now that we have when we're talking about getting our families outdoors, doing the activities, whether it's art, science, or something like dumping a canoe or a ropes course. Throughout all of that, we're going to be noticing what their comfort level is. So during this session, what sprouted up for you?
For me, I think the last point is really the most poignant one, the helping people to increase their skill level without pushing them so far that they then retreat from the opportunity is something that really popped up for me. So providing opportunities for that to happen in a safe and as comfortable as possible environment.
And I think for me, it's this truism that this permeates all relationships. And when I heard the word cue, I also remember saying to my kids, like, you need to watch my cues. I'm getting frustrated. You need to watch my cues. Do you want me to use my really grumpy voice? Like, I am tired too, and I am hot. And and learning to be in relationship, that although I have to be the responsible one and regulate my own emotions, it's also okay to tell my kids, we're in relationship together and I need a little bit of space, or I need a little bit of respect for a second, and let's work on this together. That cue piece really brought that back.
Thank you so much. And what sprouted up for me is the idea that we're going to be so open to try something outdoors that we're not going to summarize or judge or determine the success that or the lack of success. That just keep on trying things outdoors. Same way with everything else. I didn't like to eat onions when I was a kid, and I grew to like onions as an adult only because they kept being offered to me. So keep on offering to your family. Well, that's it for our chat this week on the Ground Parenting. We look forward to seeing you every Wednesday. I'm Sandy.
I'm Sam.
And I'm Kelly.
See you next Wednesday.
On the Ground Parenting is a product of Muskoka family-focused parent education program. To ask a question of one of the hosts, make a suggestion, or learn how you can become an episode sponsor or just to donate, visit us at linktr.ee/onthegroundparenting. This episode was produced, engineered, and published by Red Juice Studio. To learn more, visit redjuicestudio.com/nonprofits.